Hello, hello, hello. This is Dr. Lariat, aka Mahal Kita 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 Kita, aka The Great Bukaki, aka Perfect Tenryu, aka Crying Tiger Mask, aka Jacko Chandalaga, aka The Good Ball Boy, yeah, aka your host. And, I like simmering down now. I've been doing this for a while. And I often try to have as many guests as I can as possible from podcasts that I listen to because, I always think the best guests are people that you respect, people that you look up to. And, when it comes to people like Kensuke Sasaki, Yoshihiro Takayama, Yuji Nagata, Satoshi Kojima, and, the Great Muda, I also strive to have, that the ultimate triple crown. And you've heard people on my show. You've heard Jeremy Feinstein of Speaking of Triumph Style. You've heard both Jeremy and Josh of Keeping It Strong Style. But today, ladies and gentlemen, I am finally getting that triple crown. Hopefully, like one Mr. Jake Lee of New Japan Pro Wrestling Podcasters. I have with me the co-host of Super J-Cast. I have Joel Abraham. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me. Very happy to be here.
Yeah, Super J-Cast is the, it's the most notorious, most widely known New Japan podcast there is out there. Besides Kevin Kelly's, but that's more of a Kevin Kelly cast. But I absolutely have been such a big fan of the show, dating back, like, I guess almost like a decade. And Joel here is was actually the second co-host of the show, and in my estimation, he's probably my favorite part of the podcast. No, no shade to you, Damon, but like Joel, you've led an interesting life, and I've always wondered this: how'd you get into wrestling?
The same way most kids do. Like, oh, obviously from the UK, so wrestling started to get entering my consciousness kind of like the mid 90s, going over to my neighbor's house and seeing them watching like early Attitude Era stuff on Sky Sports, and I see like wrestling video games and stuff like that. I was a big Super Nintendo fan, so like the Royal Rumble game on the SNES, that was a big one.
Hmm.
WrestleMania game in the arcade, seeing all those larger than life characters. So yeah, that's where it started, and reached its peak when I was in secondary school and kids are running around the playground just doing wrestling moves on each other, Stone Cold Stunners and Rock Bottoms and the like. So yeah, at that point, then it was peak, and any British listeners will know that around that time, kind of late 90s, early 2000s, they showed some of the WWF pay-per-views on terrestrial TV. So you stay up on a Sunday night, it would be on Channel 4, so they put adverts in between them. But I started watching some of those and getting into it, and so I think like the first show I watched top to bottom was like Royal Rumble 2001.
Wow.
And I remember recording that one, really excited, going into school the next day. And then like everyone's talking about it and spoiling it. And I was like, oh fuck. So everyone's going around me like, oh, so Stone Cold won the Rumble. I was just like, no. So I thought, okay, right, the next few I've got to stay up live. So I actually stayed up to watch WrestleMania X7 live. And
Wow.
I probably did myself a disservice there because like, where do you go from that point? Once you see like arguably the greatest wrestling pay-per-view of all time,
Yeah.
it was quite a fall from there. So I kind of kept following it around the sort of mid 2002, when Triple H had his injury and then made his comeback, and kind of lost interest at that point. Picked it back up again around 2009 just because I thought it would be funny. I thought it'd be something to do, and ended up having like Royal Rumble watch along parties because everyone loves a Royal Rumble. Royal Rumbles are like pieces, even a bad one
Yeah.
is you're gonna have a good time. So yeah, that's where I started with WWF, WWE.
And like, who doesn't love Royal Rumble? You got all these gimmicks coming in. You don't know who's next. I remember that 2001 Royal Rumble. I was big into Kane then, and I really wanted him to win. So like, it sucks that that got spoiled for you because that's probably one of the best Royal Rumbles. Like honestly, if you look back on it, just like the people who were in it, the actual like, it's one of the best Royal Rumbles there is. And yeah, man, I can see like because when we talk to about podcasters in wrestling, there is so many British wrestling podcasts out there. A lot of them dealing with the WWE and all that. So, what was it about the wrestling that really caught your eye? Was it the characters? Was it the action? Like, you brought up the video games, like, because I love WrestleMania the arcade game. I love Slam Masters for the SNES, and I love WrestleFest at the arcade. So, like, those things also played into my fandom about it. There was also this one game called Three Count Bout that had like this great Muda knockoff in it. Really hard game to play. But what was that about like the pro wrestling itself that like spoke to you?
Yeah, it's a bit of everything, really, isn't it? It's like the theatricality of it. It's just kind of like a soap opera for boys, for men, really. And obviously, lots of girls and women watch it and enjoy it these days. But back in the day, that was what young men bonded over. You come into school and it was like what people would describe as water cooler talk. But all the kids would be talking about what happened on Raw or SmackDown or the latest pay per view. So it was just a way of like bonding with other people, I guess. And it was I piggybacked onto it late because I could see like, oh, this is really cool, and all the cool kids are talking about it. And I thought, oh, I want to get on that bandwagon. So yeah, it was just the a little bit of everything. The fact that everyone's talking about it, and just it was so pervasive in sort of late 90s, early 2000s. It was everywhere. Like I think people who didn't experience it don't really understand like how much it permeated pop culture. Like it was everywhere. Like wherever you looked, you see stuff with like The Rock or Stone Cold or whatever. And it was difficult to escape. So it was hard like not to notice it. And then I think once you dip your toes into it, then it's pretty addictive.
Yeah, yeah, definitely addictive. You know, I remember back like I guess it might have been like 6 or something years ago. You had written an article on the Voices of Wrestling website. Voicesofwrestling.com. Uh, and like you detailed about how you fell in with the New Japan Pro Wrestling. Do you mind giving a refresher to my audience about how you like? Because I remember reading the article and it being pretty cool. Because at that time, New Japan was hitting like highs that nobody's ever heard of for Japanese wrestling on an international level. And personally, I've been watching New Japan since the 90s. The video store next to us was Japanese owned, and they would bring in the commercial tapes of New Japan and laser disc of New Japan shows, so I'd get to watch them. Um, so how did you fall in with New Japan and to become like part of the number one New Japan podcast? In my estimation, number one New Japan podcast.
Oh, thank you, man. That's very kind. I It was sort of like the mid 2010s. I went to my friend got tickets to the NXT Takeover show in London, and like around that time, NXT was like a really hot product. A lot of people were talking about it, and they were hoovering up all the best talent from the indies, and including New Japan as well. So I'd be seeing guys like Prince Balor and thinking, he's pretty cool. Where did he come from? And then starting to hear about this New Japan thing, and I was sort of laboring under delusion at that point that WWE was the peak, the pinnacle of professional wrestling, but then sort of gradually becoming more and more disillusioned with it, and seeing guys like Nakamura come in, AJ Styles come in, and then thinking, right, okay, I've heard so much about these guys, watching them having a match in WWE and thinking, this kind of sucks actually. Like what's the big deal here? And then sort of hearing recommendations from other people, no, you've got to go and check out their stuff from New Japan. I was like, oh, okay. So then dipped my toes in that way. And like a lot of people, it was Dave Meltzer throwing the 6 stars at the first Omega Okada match. And Wrestle Kingdom 11 that I've like, okay. And I'm not like ride or die with Dave Meltzer or anything, but that was such a momentous thing at the time. I think a lot of people were like, wow, okay, he's broken his scale. Let's at least watch this so I can have an opinion on it. And ended up watching that Wrestle Kingdom 11 show. That was the first New Japan show that I've watched in totality, and it's absolutely hooked on it because it's just way better than what WWE were producing at the time, and just spoke to what I wanted to see in my pro wrestling, which is more kind of presented as like prize fighters with less of an emphasis on the theatricality of it and the storylines and all that, and more just presented as two guys fighting over a title. And I was a big UFC fan as well, sort of in the picked that up around like 2009 when that was getting really popular as well. So I think there's a fair amount of crossover with the products there. I know one is predetermined and the other's a legitimate sport, but I think the way that New Japan presents itself is more akin to, I'd say, like UFC and MMA than it is WWE. So yeah, ended up watching a lot of New Japan. I was living in China at the time, so it was very easy to fly over to Japan. So I thought, well, okay, fuck it, let's go to the next Wrestle Kingdom show. So I went over for Wrestle Kingdom 12. So I was there live. Had pretty good seats for that to see Naito versus Okada. And from everything I understood at that time, it was like a done deal that Naito was going to win the title then. So I was like getting excited for that, all hyped up, reading into the Naito story, watching all his old matches and stuff to see what the storyline is between these guys. But then just the absolute shock of Okada winning that match and everyone just being totally flabbergasted by that, and just seeing Naito's face after that match, when he was standing ringside and Okada was on the microphone saying, Tokyo Dome main event or Dorata, like the Tokyo Dome main event, how was it? And seeing that look on Naito's face, which is like this big mixture of emotions, like he's just trying to hold it together, but it's keeping that, that sneer, that smirk on his face, that ingobernables face, like trying to show that he's not gotten to. That just spoke to me. I found that really quite emotive. So I was listening to Voices Wrestling at the time. I was a big fan of the flagship. I was listening to the New Japan Purocast, like a lot of people, with Damon and Colin. They did tremendous work. And I thought, okay, I'll write a piece. I was so moved by that Naito Okada match and the sort of the tragic element of it that I wrote a piece on it, and that ended up getting a lot of traction on Voices of Wrestling because it was Dave Meltzer. So he read that piece, and well, I don't think he read the piece. I think he just read the title of it, which was, I can't remember, it's called like The Tragedy of Tetsuya Naito or something. And I meant like tragedy in a literary sense, in terms of like the kayfabe character Tetsuya Naito, getting this big moment in the Dome and fucking it up. But I think Dave just read the title and did some snarky quote tweet like, tragic is how I describe someone who did the best Tokyo Dome gate for however many years. And then poor Dave, he got absolutely dogpiled. Like people were just quote tweeting him saying, Dave, like, read the fucking article, man. That's not what it's about. So yeah, ended up getting a lot of traction. So I thought, that's pretty cool. So, people actually reading it, people enjoying the work. So I wrote a few more pieces, and then I think it was around, I can't remember what the show was, but it was there was an American show, a New Japan show, where I think it was like the Golden Lovers against the Young Bucks, which was when Colin dipped from the Purocast. Like he lost his passion for it, didn't want to do it anymore, which is fair enough. And Damon, I heard, was looking for a new co-host. So I just said to Rich, I was like, hey, if Damon still wants to do it, I'd love to do a New Japan podcast. And he put me in touch with Damon, and that's where it all started. Like, as soon as we had our first chat together, we just hit it off straight away. I don't know if there's an element to it of these parasocial relationships. Like, if you've been listening to a guy in audio for years and you think you kind of know them, then it, in a lot of ways, it makes it a bit easier to talk to them for the first time, even if they don't know you and they've not spoken to you for the first time. So we hit it off, and that was that. The Super J-Cast was born.
Tremendous stuff there. It to play off of that a little, like I've sort of, in my profession, in my real life, I am sort of put in this place where I have to talk to people um, about their ongoings in life, and I feel like having that openness and being able to conversate with somebody off the bat is a skill. And I remember listening to that first episode, and from my point of view, it was like you guys have always been talking. And I think that's just a sign of your guys' skill as podcasters and presenters, because oftentimes, there's growing pains in when you have co-hosts, right? So like I do multiple different kinds of shows outside of this. I have my new show, State of Wrestling. I do like a watch along show with my partner Matt Dawson. Uh, you know, and like it as far as like getting those two and getting the rhythm and getting the sort of like chemistry, it's growing pains and it takes a while. And I'm not going to say that you guys were perfect out the gate, but you guys seemed like you were, that you guys didn't have to get to know each other, that you guys sort of just already knew each other. And I think that familiarity of like, listening to this person talk and getting a feel for, their things that, oftentimes you hear about Damon's outside interest, shout out to you, Riley Reed. It's definitely it opens the door. And for me, like when I got into the whole podcasting thing, something that a couple of guys have told me is a lot of guys will come do your show because they remember what it was like when they first started. And I want to say again, thank you for coming on here, because I know you're busy, I know you have like a personal life, so like you just coming on here and giving me this time, I appreciate you, man. It's I just really appreciate it. You talked about living in China and living abroad, and we were sort of talking about other things before we got on the air. But one of my favorite things to like talk about on this show are how people fell in love. And oftentimes on your show, we hear the kids do a run-in, we hear the misses, we hear you talk about the misses from time to time. So my question for you is, how'd you guys meet?
Yeah, it's a good question. So this goes back to 2009. So after I graduated from university, I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to be a football journalist. So I went to like newspaper journalism school, did a qualification in that, but I didn't have the attitude, the stomach to be a journalist. Like you got to be ruthless to do that, and I didn't have it in me to do that. Like I had plenty of unpaid work placements. They're easy to come by in London. These places will exploit young people who are just hungry to get their foot in the door. So I've got plenty of those. But when it comes to actual paid journalistic work, like you got to be pretty cutthroat to be able to survive in that industry. So it wasn't for me. So and also the guy who ran that course gave me a bit of advice which stuck with me, which said don't mix business and pleasure, because if you are passionate about a thing, which for me was football, he was like, if you're passionate about that and you make that into your job, then you'll end up hating it, you'll end up resenting it. So just a word of warning before you did that. And I think he was right in a lot of ways. So at least that's a small bit of comfort that I took from the fact that my journalism dreams didn't really pan out. Although you could argue I'm kind of doing that at the moment with with the New Japan scene, but I
Yeah.
suppose that would be a bit self-aggrandizing to say that. But so I was basically looking for work, and my mum, she was a primary school teacher for like 20 odd years, so she said, why don't you try teaching? Suggested doing a TESOL course, like teaching English to speakers of other languages. So I thought, okay, fine, we'll give it a go. And it's not the most prestigious or high-paying career. Like a lot of people turn their noses up at it, but it gave me a sense of purpose. And I was struggling to find work for ages, and signing on, getting job seekers allowance. That's pretty bleak. It's really depressing doing that. So actually finding something, even though it didn't pay a huge amount, but having somewhere to go and people looking up to you and having those interactions with people that have come from all over the world was just very, very satisfying to me. So teaching, so I was teaching classes of adults English, so there's people from all other countries coming in, and I found that really fulfilling, and made a lot of great friends, met people from all over the world, and you're hanging out together. So it was just part of the scene there that after your classes, big group of you will go out together. You be trying different things. Like going to a Korean restaurant or trying Chinese hot pot or something. Because part of the experience is not just you're there to learn English, but there's sort of a cultural exchange element to it as well. So I was young then. I was like in my early 20s, and yeah, obviously doing that job, you meet a lot of attractive women from different countries. So even though that it's not the most prestigious career, like you get to meet a lot of people around the same age as you and hang out, and there's a good social scene there. So that's where I met my then wife, who I should clarify, she's older than me. So I wasn't like being a
Hey.
predator or anything on any no nothing untoward going on there. But yeah, her and I made friends. Like we were friends at first. Like we had this gang of people that we'd hang out with and go out for dinner together. And eventually, when she finished her course at the school, then we just started hanging out a bit more. And I had this rule where, like, if your phone rings during class, then you have to bring in food from your country. I thought it was just like a fun little thing to, make it the class is a bit more enjoyable. So people's phone ring, then the next day they bring some food from their country. And she one day, just when her phone went off, the next day she brought in this just absolutely killer dish. It's a Thai dish from the north of Thailand called Nampik Ong, which I'd never tried before, and I was just like, oh, this is really good. So I was like asking her, oh, you have to send me the recipe, and add me on Facebook, and then add each other on Facebook, and started chatting on that. And then I thought, I'm going to be very professional. We're not going to start seeing each other whilst I was still employed at the whilst she was still enrolled at the school. So when her course finished, then we're hanging out a few times, and yeah, that's where it went from there. Sorry, you have excuse my cat in the background, so I wants a piece of the podcasting action. But yeah, that's how it started. So she was kind of wrapping up her time in London. She'd been there for a couple of years studying English, so she's from Thailand.
Yeah.
We started seeing each other, went on a few dates, and then her visa expired, so she was going back to Thailand. And so at that point, it was like, okay, like do we want to keep this going or what? So I'd always wanted to live abroad, something that I've been interested in, from a young age. And so I thought, well, fuck it, I'll go to Thailand. Why not? So
No.
she went back to Thailand. I started looking for jobs over there and followed her out there, basically. And yeah, that was, I suppose, the start of our journey together.
Man, that's freaking cool, man. And you know what the whole stereotype on British people is, I'm gonna make a joke because I'm Filipino and you guys try to go to the Philippines to take over. So not you personally, like like the whole joke is the British Empire has conquered all these lands for spices, but they can't handle it. So how did you handle all that spice in Thailand, my brother?
I was used to it. I'd like to think of myself as quite a adventurous eater. I mean,
Nice.
I don't know if it's like my ethnicity. Like my paternal grandfather is from Iraq originally and grew up in
Okay,
India. Like it was good,
that makes
quite a
sense.
multicultural background. So we were never like a sort of pure like English style family. So we would always be eating foods from lots of other countries and that, and that's
Yeah.
part of the territory as well. When you live in London, like people in London don't eat English food. Like English food it's a bit crap, if we're honest. So yeah, I had plenty of experience trying like other cuisines and stuff. I love Thai food, although I say I love Thai food. Like if you think you like Thai food, the kind of Thai food you can get in Western countries, I'd say, is like 5% of the full spectrum of Thai food you get in Thailand. So I thought I knew Thai food until I actually went to Thailand, and then you realize that there's a whole other game out there. Like there's such a complex variety of dishes. Like you never get bored of it. I never got sick of Thai food because there's so many
Oh
different
yeah.
things you could try. There's so many influences from other countries, other Asian countries, that yeah, what you see on the menu in a Thai restaurant is just like the tip of the iceberg in terms of Thai cuisine. So I've always been, well, I like to think I've been quite good with my chili, with my spicy food, but it is on another level out there. Like sometimes you
Yeah.
have to tell people to just like tone it down a bit. Like you go to like a street food store where they're doing like the papaya salad sometime, and then they'd ask you like how spicy do you want it, and I'd say like, oh, tamada, like normal, and then they just get like this like a fistful of red chilies and throw it in there. I'm like, okay, no, maybe not. Like that's a bit extreme. Like I still like to be able to taste my food. So yeah, it can get pretty hardcore there, especially like from the part of the country my wife's from in the deep south of Thailand, where a lot of like really spicy, pungent curries, which I like to think I'm an open-minded eater, but that's on a whole different level. So
Oh,
yeah, there's Thai restaurants and then there's Thailand. It's the two things are not really
oh,
comparable.
yeah. I had I had Thai friends growing up, right? That's the Wadi Gap. And like you get you when you get the homemade stuff, right? The homemade curry. And like my friends would ask me like if I could really handle spicy, and I think I could, right? Because like I eat habaneros, I like jalapenos. Filipino food from where I'm in the country, that's also spicy. But man, when you say no, you can handle it, they kind of like it's not the same kind of level of spice, like because sometimes like something's hot and like you can like taste it still, and like mind you, the food is delicious, right? But once that spice hits after like you get the first initial taste of like the delicious like curry or whatever, or like the soup or whatever. But when that pepper hits your tongue, like after like 10 seconds, you're kind of like in hell, but like it's a
Yep.
delicious hell. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, man, it's really interesting, like because I did not know you. I assumed like Abraham. That's not really a proper English name, and I always like wondered like your makeup, and now knowing that you have these different like Iraqi sort of background, it now your profile picture makes a lot more sense to me. Um, not saying I'm
Yeah,
racist.
my grandfather was from so I'm well, I say Jewish, I'm like a secular Jew, but like my grandfather was from a clan of Baghdadi Jews. So like there were Jewish people living in Iraq then.
Interesting.
But my mum, she's like her background is like Russian, Portuguese. That's where her family originates from. We got loads of relatives, like branches of the family out in India. So it's just like a big mix of all different stuff.
That's lovely, man. I love what I love coming on here and on my show is sharing these different stories of people from different backgrounds. And for someone from the UK to live abroad in China, in Thailand, that's very interesting. And like you yourself now, you have children of mixed background also. So like you're adding to the you're adding to the pot of the Abraham curry of new ingredients there, man. Uh,
Yeah, I'll give you something which I don't know if I've ever said this on the Super J Cast before. I mean,
yeah.
let me know if I have. But my great great aunt was the first ever Miss India. She was like a
Wow.
Bollywood star. So her stage name was Pramila. Her real name was Esther. Was that what my daughter was named after. So if you search for Pramila, her name was Esther Victoria Abraham. So if you look her up, then yeah, you'll see that's my little
Uh,
claim to fame there.
yeah. I'm just gonna do a little bit of. And how do you spell that again?
So Esther, Esther,
Yes.
Victoria, normal spelling, Abraham.
Oh
So
man.
she was like a big Bollywood star. So my great uncle, he's written Bollywood screenplays. So obviously, he's got the family connection to Bollywood royalty. So yeah, they're like doing much more interesting stuff over at that end of the family.
Amazing. Absolutely beautiful. Also, um, you know, absolutely beautiful. That's funny that you have that sort of connection to to Bollywood to beauty pageants, and I always say this like uh, the more mixing there is, the more varied it is. They say like with with animals, the more mixing, the more likely that that dog is going to survive. And in my family, I'm Filipino, but we're also Chinese, and there's parts of my that have some relatives who are also part Indian. So I know all about the mixing, and like it's having this sort of like multicultural background and having a multicultural family. Uh, are there that many like do you guys see any difficulties in having that multicultural background, or do you see it like as a bonus and as a feature of like being in, being an interracial relationship and having this sort of this come togetherness of different cultures? I think it's beautiful, honestly.
Yeah, we've always seen it as a positive. It depends where you are, I suppose, and it's an interesting kind of paradigm that the idea of nationality, asking, oh, where are you from, like what nationality you are,
Yeah,
it's not as fixed as it used to be, and it can be a really loaded question that doesn't have a short and easy answer. So in some places it carries with it cultural connotations that can be, I don't know, problematic. Like, for example, when Mally first told her family that she was dating a British guy, the first
yeah,
question they asked her was like, "How old is he?" Because they're imagining all the stereotypes. They're thinking of
yeah,
like some elderly bloke, which that's a thing. I know it's a stereotype, but it's
yeah,
real. I've been out there. I've seen it. There's a lot of lonely older Western men who go out there to find companionship with younger Thai women, and I'm not putting a value judgment on that, but it is there. It is absolutely a factor, and it does affect people's perceptions, and people approach these things with like those preconceived biases. So both on from the Thai aspect, where her family's asking, well, how old is this dude? Like, is this legit or what? And
yeah,
then also from the Western point of view, like I know a lot of Western people, like if you tell them, oh, I'm married to a Thai woman, then there are stereotypes that are popping in their heads, whether that's like ladyboys or gold diggers or whatever. So that it does
yeah,
come with a lot of baggage, and even within Thailand, like there are certain stereotypes for different regions of Thailand, like the classic, the trope of the sort of gold digging Thai wife, which I'm not here to debate how fair or how accurate that is, but there's a certain area of Thailand, the northeast of Thailand, Isan, where you do tend to get more of those cross-cultural relationships where a lot of the sex workers in Thailand are from that part of Thailand. So I remember in China meeting another British guy who just joined our school, and he'd spent some time in Thailand. And I said, I was just talking to him, and you'd not met my wife before, and he mentioned that he'd just been working in Thailand. And I said, oh yeah, my wife's from Thailand. And then he said to me, oh, is she from Isan? Which was a very loaded question. I was like, what do you mean by that? Why have you instantly assumed that? So he brought into that a lot of his preconceived biases where yeah, that kind of cross-cultural
yeah,
element to the relationship, like yeah, people bring baggage into that. And um also when you're in that international school environment, third culture children is that can be quite tricky for those kids to navigate if they're,
yeah,
let's say we had raised our children in Thailand, then got a British dad, a Thai mum, growing up in China. What are they? That's a cultural identity that they can struggle to navigate. And I've heard from other people I'd worked with about the struggles with their children growing up in that as third culture children, where dad is from one country, mum's in another country, and they're being raised in a third country. That can be quite difficult for them. But yeah, luckily for us, like since well, it's never been a problem for us. Like we've never really
yeah.
encountered any kind of uh, significantly negative stereotypes or biases or anything like that. So I'd say like where we are at the moment, like it's really nice that like my children, for example, can share their culture and heritage at school. Like when we do our little things like a World Explorer Day, where people
Oh
are
yeah,
sharing cultural elements from like we'll pick a country every half term and then learn about that country and do activities, do some cooking from that country, just little things like that make life a bit more interesting and makes the world a bit smaller in a good way. So
well,
especially in this environment where there's so much hostility across borders and between different countries, that any way to sort of bring people closer together and expose people, particularly kids, to new cultures and languages and foods and celebrations and things like that can only be a good thing.
yeah. That's beautiful, man. I remember back when I was in elementary school, we actually did have those cultural celebration days because we our school, when I first went to the neighborhood I was at, it was mostly a predominantly white area. But like by the time I was by the time a year had passed, more, more South Asian, more Southeast Asian, more East Asian, more African American, more Latino people had moved to the area. So like it was like instantly all of a sudden the population in the school had gotten more melanin. And so it was behoove of the school because the principal also, I believe, was a person of Indian background, decided to have like a cultural like celebration day, and that's where I learned like we would bring foods from our cultural background, and I thought that was like thinking back on it now as an adult, I was like, man, that's so great to introduce these kids to all this different food, this different like traditional stuff, these different kinds of wearing, like the different kinds of like clothing. I think that it's great at a young age to introduce children to all these different cultures so that they don't have a preconceived notion of like other being bad or other being weird. It's just like othering should be sort of celebrated. Our differences shouldn't like put a line between us. Our differences should be celebrated and should be used to bring us together as a people, as a culture. Because, I also feel like when I went to the UK, it really wasn't as, it was way more diverse than I thought it would be. Like when I went to Ireland and, they had they had Chinese and Indian restaurants like on most pretty much every corner. And like I'm just like I see people of these different races walking around. I'm like, well, I guess the United Kingdom wasn't as wide as I thought it would be from the town I was in Dublin. So it wasn't like it was a more metropolitan town. So you're going to see more different cultures across races. And I think that when we have different cultures and you're like mixing around and we try to like define what the culture of a country is, right? Like you going to Thailand or you going to China or you going to Japan, they're gonna see your passport first as British, whereas when you're in the UK or when you're in the United States, they'll see you as okay, this guy has an Iraqi background, some Indian and some Portuguese. They'll see that part of you first, and I think uh, trying to wrap your head around that as Western people, it's kind of funny, right? Because when you go to Japan, you're British. You're not you're not Iraqi, you're not Indian, you're not Portuguese, you're British. And I think like when I go to Japan, I'm American. And I think that that's pretty funny because when I'm over here in America, I guess the last thing people see is an American, especially in this current climate, which is, kind of ass. Um, yeah, man,
Yeah,
I'm
I think it's like
happy.
it depends where you are really. Like
Yeah,
the UK, it's not a monolith. Like there are some parts which are extremely culturally diverse, but there are some parts which are quite racially homogenous. Like there are
yeah,
a lot of parts of the UK where it is mainly white people, and around the part of the country where I live in Devon, there are some towns where all the people are white, and having a foreign person there is a bit of a novelty. I mean, I
wow,
could have chosen to send my kids to one of the very very local schools, like a village school, where like literally everyone in there would have been white and British, but it it wasn't an experience I wanted my children having. So they're lucky to go to a school where very much like what you described. So like she's my daughter, she's got classmates from Ukraine, from Nigeria, from Trinidad, from India,
that's
from China,
beautiful.
from Vietnam. Like it's really cool, and I think it's a really great way for her to be exposed to more of the world basically. But yeah,
Yeah,
there are absolutely parts of the UK where it's very much a
yeah,
novelty to see someone who isn't British. But yeah, like you say, it's not. I think I don't present as foreign. Like I think I appear as British and English when I'm in England. But yeah, I mean, who knows? Like, especially with the way things going politically in this country, there are undercurrents of hostility bubbling up. It's not something that I've experienced personally, but you see it on the Facebook groups and stuff from the local towns, and
yeah.
there's a lot of like um, marches and stuff that happen in the country where there's some pretty scary rhetoric emerging in the country, which you obviously well about happening
Yeah.
in the US for quite a while. So it's a bit of a scary time to to be ethnically diverse family.
Yeah. And like, I there's some parts of, of America, some parts of where I'm at, some towns like I kind of, especially now with what I know they're doing those ICE deployments, where I sort of try to avoid, like when I go to the grocery store now, it's sort of like a mission. When I go to the grocery store, like to look out and make sure like there's no like there's specific vehicles they use and what they come out of. And
Yeah,
so it's like it's sort of weird right now to like go from January where this was like last year in January, this was not an issue to this year in 2026, and I'm sort of just like I feel sometimes I feel trapped in my house, but like it's out of safety more than like I feel like it's very weird, man. It's a very weird environment to be doing this right now, and I when I hear about people celebrating their diversity in their schools and with their children and all that, and you to have this multicultural, mixed family, it always makes me feel happy to see that and to see like people getting along and people finding love. Uh, to speak to your point, I'm Southeast Asian and Filipino. There is this sort of like dichotomy where if this person is going to marry a British person, and you're always thinking about this bald old white man from England. I believe if you watch season three of I believe White Lotus, they call them bald white losers. I think that's the
yeah,
whole
yeah.
thing. And yeah, man, it, you have all these sort of like preconceived notions like that, and not just from like zero to D10, like not just from the Eastern and not just from the Western, but both people have their connotations. And breaking the stereotype and just not having those expectations is what you want out of life. And it when your coworkers brought up the town where you thought your wife was from, that sort of comes off as a microaggression because the assumption is that she, is a mail order bride kind of situation, which
Right.
it definitely wasn't. And you know, it, you kind of just wish that when people ask where you're from, they always mean where your hometown is. And it's always a loaded question when people ask where you're from. It's because like you sometimes when I was a kid and people asked where I was from, and I'd say, "Oh yeah, I'm from Los Angeles." People say, "No, but where are you really from?"
Yeah, where are you really from? Yep.
And like it's just that's a loaded question, man. I just told you I'm from LA. Where do you think I'm from?
Yeah, like immediately othering you and making you feel less than or different.
Yeah, man. I definitely love this conversation, man. When so I heard
Can I tell you this? Just like one thing. Sorry to interrupt you, but like
yeah
my sister-in-law, so my wife's sister, who's
yeah
obviously also Thai, she is engaged to an American guy. She's from, I think he's from Brooklyn actually. Kamal, his name is. So they're getting married in New Jersey this year. So Mali's planning to fly out there for the wedding, and I'm terrified. Like all the stuff I'm seeing in the news, I'm really scared that she's going to go out there for this wedding and like get bundled into a van by ICE agents or something. So I
oh
don't
man
know if you can like talk me down from that ledge, but it seems pretty grim
hey
at the moment.
oh brother, so don't have any memes on your phone, don't have any memes of JD Vance or of Donald Trump, and you should be fine. uh Fuck, man. I don't know what else to tell you, man. Because they're dragging citizens out of their houses, and like you know, I think tourism has been so down in the U.S. that Disneyland's not made that much money, so people are scared to go over here, like what you said, and like it's because of what's on the news, and what's on the news is actually happening. Like you would think, like what I see happening is somewhere like I don't know, some weird dictatorship, but I am in a dictatorship. Uh, uh, Not to mince words, it's just yeah, having the fear of your wife and her family, your family basically being swooped up into an ice van, and then like you don't know when you're gonna see them again. I haven't told this story yet, but I'll tell it to you because I don't know when this is coming out. But so I had an uncle, right? I have an uncle. So he went to lunch with his coworkers. This is in Los Angeles County, right? So when they went to lunch, ICE happened to be there. His two coworkers got scooped up in there, and he had his passport on him. So he brought out his passport right away, and they left him alone. But his two coworkers, they showed their real ID, and that wasn't enough, and they got put into a van, and you know, I think my uncle said it took about like a month to like contact and get them out, and like that's fucking scary, man. Like you have your driver's license and because over here in California, your drive if you get the real ID, that should account like your that means you had a passport, you have whatever. So like that should be enough. But they will just scoop you up and say like that's not good enough, and you'll be put in detention, and you'll be stay there for until like they deem like you can have contact with the outside world. And you know how freaking scary that is, man. Like you just go to lunch with your coworker, and then you're in federal custody. Like
Yeah, it's the kind
that's
of shit
America
that
right now.
we were watching movies and reading like dystopian futuristic novels in like post-apocalyptic societies, the kind of stuff that's going on, and it is happening right in
Yeah,
front of us.
yeah. So like I want to say like to you and if your wife you and your wife and your family when you go there, make sure you guys have all your papers. Make sure like your passports, all of that is on you because they can descend on you, and that's the scariest part is especially if your relatives don't know how to speak English too well, they will just be taken advantage of, and it's it's disgusting, man. It's absolutely disgusting. This is not this is supposed to be the land of the free, home of the brave. This is supposed to be America is built on the backs of immigrants. It's and the fact that countries like Canada and countries are telling their citizens like to avoid coming to the U.S. because so they don't get like you know don't get scooped up in these things and then don't get deported back to their countries. It's telling, man. It's telling, and it's I don't like this for the United States, but it is what it is. And like I tell everybody, like it's is just be careful and keep your eyes peeled and don't talk to the cops. Especially don't talk to cops that are wearing masks. So it's
Yeah, it does make me wonder, like, what am I doing having children? Like, what kind of world have I have I brought these kids into? It's bleak. I can't see it getting any better. I hate to say that.
yeah,
So, what can you do? You just try and isolate myself from it as much as I can to try and give raise my kids right and try to protect them from as much of this stuff as I can because it's
yeah,
yeah I can't see it getting better anytime soon.
yeah, and that's all you can do, man. That's all you can do is do your best and protect you and yours as much as you can, man. Um, I'm going to just put a little pin right here. Um, and we're back. I've just been having this culture exchange with Joel, and this has probably been one of my favorite conversations to have. And yeah, I think that there's always these preconceived notions that wrestling fans are stupid, and I think like with this show in particular and other shows I've done, I think I showed the depth and the diversity on wrestling fans. I've had a couple of people on here. You know who you are. But I always try to strive to make sure that wrestling fans are not a monolith. And it's always fun to have somebody with you that can share their experiences and share their lived experiences. That you're not just a guy in a black t-shirt cheering on his favorite wrestler. You also have your own life. You have your own likes, and I always wanted to ask you, like, what's your favorite movie?
Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So that's an easy number one. And if I do a quick plug for Super J Cast Patreon, me and the young boy Josh Smith from Keeping It Strong Style, we did a deep dive on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We went like nearly 3 hours. By the end of it, he was like, "Dude, we've got to stop now. I need to go." So I could talk about that film for hours and hours. But yeah, that's my number one. RoboCop probably close seconds. But yeah, those are the two that pop into my mind.
Oh man, that RoboCop is probably one of my favorite cyberpunk future retro future movies. I love RoboCop. Uh, I come peacefully and no one will be hurt. I love RoboCop. Verhoeven is one of the that is a masterpiece to me. Like consumerism, the horror aspects of it. I love RoboCop. Uh, if you were gonna name uh three of your favorite Thai dishes, what would they be?
Okay. Gai Pad Met Mum Wang, which is chicken with cashew nuts. It's
Mm,
simple, but it's a classic. Goi Tiao Re, which is boat noodles. So it's like a noodle soup, usually with pork or beef, and they thicken the broth with blood, which sounds weird,
it's
but it's really
delicious.
great. And a third one, man, it's very very difficult. Um, okay, I'm gonna pick a dish from my wife's part of the country. It's a southern dish called kuah kling, which is minced pork, which is kind of dry, stir fried in a really spicy curry paste.
Mm.
Sometimes comes with sador beans, those like the green stink beans, which some people find really offensive. I think they taste great. So yeah, there you go. There's your three.
Man, that's wonderful, man. Yeah, I think that Thai food is one of the best, most diverse, and you get like you get the spicy, the heat, the fat, the salt, the sweet, all in there. I am very partial to tom kha like soup. That's
Yes.
probably oh, man, coconut soup with the yeah, that's probably with the and I yeah, man, I want to thank you for coming on here. If people want to find you, where can they find you
So yeah, if you a New Japan Pro Wrestling fan, then you check out the Super J Cast. That's a podcast me and Damon do about New Japan. Um, I mean, it's funny really talking about this. Like, I know that some of your listeners probably,
at?
I've got a reputation on Twitter. People like clowning on me on Twitter for my viewpoints, which is fun. That's all part of the game. But at the end of the day, I always find it really funny when I find myself arguing with like AEW fans on Twitter. Like at the end of the day, we're all nerds, right? We're all pro
Yeah.
wrestling fans, just cheering for our team and preferring a slightly different flavor of the same shit. So yeah, it's just. If you want to hear some of my slop, they'll be over there on the Super J Cast.
Oh man. By the way, I want to put this in there. I don't know when this is coming out, but I feel like American pro wrestling having too much influence on both Mexican and Japanese pro wrestling fucking sucks, and I hope it stops. That's what I'm hoping for. Uh, I feel like when you let something influence a pro wrestling booking or pro wrestling style too much, it kind of alienates the fan base you already have. So, what I'm hoping for is, you know, a lot more New Japan, a lot more CML in CML and New Japan, and a lot less foreign menacing. That's what I'm hoping for. Uh, if you had a favorite dessert, what's your favorite dessert?
Oh, dessert. I'm not a huge dessert guy, but there's one that sticks in my mind, which I had. This is really weird. So this was when I was in Chengdu in China, which is a city which is famous for its spicy food, like the mala food, like the spicy numbing food. But I had from like a street cart this incredible dessert. I think it was called Bingfen, and it was like crushed ice and like these kind of jelly noodles and berries and syrup and nuts. It was just like this
Yeah.
big mix of stuff. But as I was there on this like filthy, like sweating street corner with my mouth on fire, that was just like the perfect dessert to me at the perfect time. So that's why that's stuck in my memory. And I've never had anything like it since. I probably never will again, but it was an extremely memorable dessert to me.
Oh yeah, being fun. So like that's kind of means that's kind of like being is like ice, fun is like noodle.
Yeah,
So like that
yeah.
that's an dessert. My wife is Chinese, so I also have like a little bit
She'll
of
know
that
Big
process.
Fun then, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, man. I loved having you on here. It's been a fantastic conversation. You know, we learned a lot about each other, and like, man, I gotta thank you for coming on here. The last question I always ask everybody on this show is, what do you want your rainbow to say? Like, if a rainbow appeared out the sky with a message from one Mr. Joel Abraham, what would that rainbow say?
Shinihon Ichiban.
Shin
I
Nihon
don't know, man.
Ichiban.
No, not that, not that. Oh God, well, that's a very deep question. Fuck, put me on the spot there. Arsenal, Premier League and European champions 2026. I say that because I'm in the middle of watching Arsenal versus Inter Milan.
Arsenal Premier League champion. Okay. Arsenal Premier. What's that again?
Arsenal Premier League and European champions 2026.
Arsenal Premier League and European champions 26. Hey, man. You know, my 49ers lost in the playoffs, so I definitely feel you on the football team loyalty. Thank you for joining me here on the prescription, Joel. Like it's been an honor to have you, man. And hopefully we talk
Pleasure's
again.
mine. Yeah, happy to do it again another time. It's been really fun.
私